Just making sure we got everything sorted out. Mic's working. Welcome to today's live stream. This is the live stream for, just check the sound. Just making sure we got we got sound there. This is a live stream for our members. If you want to comment and ask a question, then you have to join down below. Click on the link. So today I want to talk about just some of the biggest transformations that I've made since I've stopped drinking alcohol. You know, stopping drinking alcohol is not about the alcohol. It's about stopping the behavior. It's about getting rid of the thinking that holds up the behavior. It's all about what happens as well in the years and the weeks and months and years after you stop using this poison. You know, what does your life look like without alcohol? I mean, that's a tough one in the beginning to get to that stage, to even understand what your life looks like. You know, it was one of the biggest things for me was to see what, people focus in on smaller things like socializing. How do I have fun? How do I do all this kind of stuff? It's in that same framework, same mind frame that your drinking came from. And it's very difficult to see out of that. We call that the drinker's mind. You know, what does your life look like when your mind shifts away from that drinker's mind, when your mind shifts away from that alcohol thinking? And, you know, your mind is everything. Without your mind, there is no you. You've got no life. You've got no existence, really. You know, so the alcohol gets everywhere. It's, you know, when you drink alcohol and you put it inside your body, it goes all the way through to your liver is the first port of call, I suppose. And while your liver is dealing with the alcohol that it can deal with, the rest of it is floating around your system. And in particular, for me, the alcohol gets into your brain, you know, and it starts messing around with your brain, messing around with your thinking, messing around with, you know, everything that goes on up there. I mean, like I said, your brain is everything. So now I can't guarantee how your life is going to turn out when you stop drinking alcohol. Nobody can do that for you. I can tell you that if you stop the flow of the poison and then you put as much energy into improving your thinking and improving your actions as you used to put into getting a buzz and buying the alcohol and using the alcohol and going through the whole process. If you put as much energy into your life afterwards as you're putting into that, then you're going to start living that best, going towards that best possible life that you can live. You know, like I said, there's no guarantees with anything, you know, and this life is all what you put into it, what you get out of it. So, but in this video, I just wanted to talk about 7 of the biggest transformations, 7 of the big transformations that happened in my life when I started living my life without alcohol. So, I don't know if you know me, I'm Kevin O'Hara for Alcohol Mastery and Habits Unplugged. If this is your first time here and you want to learn how to stop drinking alcohol to build that epic life, to get to that best possible version of yourself, you can start by subscribing to this channel, hitting the bell notification so you don't miss anything. And if you want to ask a question, like I said, click on the join button below the video for more information, more details. Okay, so the first thing is alcohol, it numbs your brain. You know, for me, when I was drinking alcohol, it was covering up so many different issues in my life. It was caused a lot of those issues as well. You know, there was a lot of stuff that was just happening in my life, and alcohol gives you that tool to hide from them, to hide from yourself, to hide from problems, to hide from reality. So alcohol is a form of medication. It's a tool, right? It's a really bad tool. You know, it's a, as they say, when you when the only tool you've got in your box is a hammer, then the whole world looks like a nail. Can't remember who said that, but it's true. And it's not, when you drink alcohol to solve something, it's not like a laser guided missile that you fire at that problem, and you want to forget that specific problem. It's more like a grenade that you're throwing into the mix, and it just goes off and, smashes up everything in its path. So, some of the things that you were supposed to be dealing with in life, some of the things that, in order to get to that best possible version of yourself, you've got to deal with in life. The problems that you've got to work out, the things that are going to take you forwards and take you to the next step and the next step and the next step. Take you up the levels, take you one step forwards. All of those things are pushed aside when you're drinking alcohol. Because the one thing that alcohol does for you better than anything else is it dumbs down your brain. That's why people like it more than anything else, is because it allows them to not think, or to get onto a level of thinking which is basically not thinking. It's like the lowest form of stimulation that you can have. But that dumbing down effect starts out on a very short-term basis. When you start drinking first, it starts out and it's just, it's hitting you short-term. But the accumulation of the alcohol, the accumulation of all the times that you're drinking alcohol, that accumulates the dumbing down process, and that dumbing down starts to stick. It starts to become who you are and what you do. So one of the biggest transformations for me was to allow my brain to come out of that state, and there's so many problems, like I said, that you have to deal with because of alcohol. And I always use the analogy of an onion. You peel back the layers of an onion, so that brown skin on the outside of the onion is your alcohol problem, or whatever it is, whatever problem you're using to hold you back. And once you take away that peel, then you start to peel back more layers and more layers and more layers, and you uncover things about yourself that have been hidden for a long time. I'm not just talking about problems, I'm talking about skills, natural skills that you have, natural skills that you might have built up, just knowledge that you have that you've forgotten, that you haven't been using in a long time. A lot of people find this whole process boring at the beginning when they stop drinking alcohol, because of that, the dumbing down has stopped. And, what used to be amusing to you, what used to be attractive to you, what used to be stimulating to you is no longer any of those things, because your brain has started to pump up to that next level. And those things that you used to find stimulating are now boring. Sitting in the pub listening to gobshites talking, I mean, how boring can you get, right? But it just means, for me, when I stopped, it was just gradually dealing with the problems, dealing with the demons that are created by the alcohol. Like I said, I never thought there's not any such thing as a demon as such. It's more that the more you allow problems and difficulties in your life to fester, the more you're going to create these problems that just expand and expand until they seem demonic. And it's an easy excuse for people to say, oh well, it's part of my life, it's part of my past, it's part of this, it's part of that, blah blah blah. So a lot of personal issues will start to pop up, and you can deal with them. You can start heading back up and making progress in the right direction. That's one of the biggest benefits of stopping drinking alcohol, is that you start to move upwards. Now, the second one is that alcohol, when I was drinking alcohol, I used to drink to repress emotions. Alcohol suppresses a lot of emotions, whether you're doing that deliberately, or whether it's just happening because of what alcohol is. You know, we talk about alcohol being a drug, and you know, for me, a drug is just another label that we use. You know, people don't want to face up to the fact that alcohol is a toxin, a neurotoxin. But it's what alcohol does for you, or what alcohol does against you. I mean, we start using alcohol for all sorts of what we perceive as being benefits, but at the end of the day, it's only when we start to understand the consequences of doing that you know, A follows, or B follows A. You know, that with life is about trade-offs. You know, you're trading off instant buzz for long-term health. You're trading off instant buzz for long-term success in life. You can't have everything, you know, despite what some people want to tell you these days. So, you know, I used to use alcohol for a repressant for bad experiences, or to express good experiences. So you're pushing down bad emotions. You drink because you don't want to feel these bad emotions, and then you're drinking as well because you want to express good emotions. You want to feel happy. You want to feel contented with your life, you know. And each of those things then becomes tied to alcohol, and that's the biggest problem. That you're pushing down these emotions, and you need to keep pushing them down. So you need to keep drinking, and the emotions are getting worse because the problems that are causing the emotions, the bad emotions, are not being solved. And your good emotions, the happiness, or what you think is happiness, you know, your happiness levels, the levels of happiness that you feel, become so watered down that you don't know what happiness is anymore, and you don't understand it until you stop. And you've been away from alcohol for a while, and you start to really feel that happiness coming back into your life, and the joy, you know. And it's all because alcohol has become tied to the emotions. You need to drink in order to feel happy. You can't feel happy with other people without drinking. How many people have gone into a pub and said, yeah, I can't have a social conversation with somebody unless I have a drink because I feel whatever, you know. That's the way I felt. You know, there's a lot of unwanted and painful and fearful emotions that people push down, uncomfortable situations, you know, confrontational situations. Grief is a huge one. You know, if you're going through grief, I've been through that myself a few times, and it's really it's not a good thing, you know, because it extends the grief without, you know, there's the stages of grief that you need to go through in order to beat the grief, and you can't beat it unless you go through those stages. And alcohol kills that grief, that possibility of going through those grief. It's, you know, not a good thing at all. But afterwards, I started having these emotions bubbling up that I didn't realize I had. Some of them are, you know, bad emotions that I didn't really want to deal with them. But, you know, this, you know, I think it was 2-3 years after I stopped drinking alcohol that a lot of these emotions were coming through, which was weird. And it was, I remember the just climbing up this particularly difficult mountain. It was steep. It was on a track, so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but it was just a lot of effort that I put in, and I started feeling these emotions as I'm going towards the top. And I realized that a lot of this stuff that I've been thinking about for the last half an hour up this hill, I hadn't thought about in so long. And, you know, but the brain is in a different position then. You're clear, you're thinking straight, so you're able to put things into perspective and to start dealing with the emotions as they pop up, you know, which is a great thing. You know, you need to control these emotions, and you control your emotions by reason, you know, by thinking them through, by thinking, why am I having this thing? You know, am I having this thing? Is it something that I should be having? And, you know, is it a logical emotion, or is it something that I'm just being emotional about for the sake of being emotional? You know, mind over emotions is important. So you're much more emotionally in control of yourself when you stop drinking. You know, you're controlling your emotions is controlling your reality to a certain extent, instead of allowing your emotions to control your reality. Do you get what I mean? It's a big difference. Beforehand, there was just an emotional roller coaster in my life. It was up and down, up and down. You know, people around me, the people I care about, would say things to me like, you I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know what to expect from you these days. Jekyll and Hyde sort of a thing. And afterwards, you just get onto it. It takes a while, but you get onto an emotional stability. Like I said, it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort, it takes focus. It takes you to have a direction that you're aiming towards, but it's worth it because it gives you an overall contentment in life. If you want to get to that best possible version of yourself, you have to, it's essential that you control your emotions. I'm not saying you're going to have total control of your emotions, but to have a certain large amount of emotions or control of your emotions. So the third thing is that alcohol made me apathetic to life. Apathetic. It made me not bothered about things. I didn't care, especially when I was drinking. There was just something that was in my brain that had been growing and growing and growing. I used to hang out with some pretty dodgy people when I was drinking. I didn't care who I was hanging around with. I didn't care who I was talking to. I didn't care what stories I was telling, what I was saying, what was going into my mind or what was coming out of it. I had a certain amount of procrastination in life, procrastination in relationships, procrastination in work. Just negative thoughts, bad thoughts. Why does this all matter? What is all this about? Sort of an existential angst, just an underlying anxiety that was there all the time, because you're not moving forward, you're not growing in life, you're not doing things that are building yourself up. Like I said, alcohol, there is two things in life that are as certain as anything, that it's all about choices and trade-offs. The opportunity costs come from the trade-offs, are the things that you're missing out on, because you can only do so much with the time that you've got. You can only do so much with the money that you've got. And alcohol screws around with your brain so much that you're wasting away your talents and your potential in life. And the clock is ticking away. It's just ticking away all the time. So the more time that you waste on this, but on a brighter note, afterwards, it took a while, but there is a certain amount of fear that you don't know what you're doing at the beginning, but there's a certain amount of excitement that follows you as well, that you have at the beginning, and that comes with it throughout your whole journey. And that excitement gives you eventually a renewed love for life, right? You're just able to use your time better. You've got more time, which means that, everyone's got the same 24 hours in the day, but you use it better. So if you're using that 24 hours 10 times better than you were beforehand, because you're doing something which is much more productive, then you've got 10 times the amount of time that you used to have before, relatively speaking. So, since I stopped, I just want to live more life. I want to have more quantity of life, obviously, but also more quality of life. So they're the first three. Alcohol covers up issues in your life. And after you stop drinking alcohol, you gradually deal with many of these issues. Nobody is looking for perfection in this life. We're all trying to head towards, I think, that best possible version of yourself. I think is a great goal to aim towards. It's a very abstract goal, but it means that everyone has their own possibilities. Emotional issues, repression, emotional repression, these you use alcohol for these, as well as to express your positive emotions, and you're in this roller coaster of life. And after you're much better, you're much more capable emotionally, you're much more level-headed, you've got much more emotional control and stability over your life. And the third one was that you're just not really caring about life anymore when you're drinking alcohol. And after you stop drinking alcohol, you eventually get to a stage where you're loving life. So I'm gonna have a drink. If you haven't subscribed, and you can click on the link down below to subscribe, and click on the bell notification, if you want to get notified of what's coming up. We send out notifications of these videos, so you can see it from them. If you want to ask a question while we're going live, just click on the join button below the video. Excuse me. All right. So let's go on to the second transformations, and this is sort of extracting meaning from the fog that you're left over with once you stop drinking. Before I stopped drinking alcohol, there was a certain lack of meaning in my life. It was just a waste of life. You know, you're doing the same shit over and over and over again, right? Boozing becomes boring, it becomes repetitive, it becomes a life suck, as well as all the other negative stuff like dangerous and whatever it's doing to your body and to your, you know, your mind. Now, we believe in ourselves, you know, we're taught to believe that alcohol helps us to relax, to have fun. And we're so caught up with the bullshit of all this that we don't realize that how many of our days are being bled of any meaning. You know, all the meaning of this 24 hours is sucked out because we're doing something which is just getting us wasted, right? The waste of life. You know, the meaning for me is sucked out of all the good times when I was drinking. And it boils down to that one thing, that behavior of drinking the alcohol, not the alcohol itself. You know, I have to keep stating that it's not the alcohol. The alcohol is just a liquid in a bottle. It's the mentality, because you can switch alcohol for something else and you can still do the same thing. You can switch it for another drug and you can still do the same thing, right? We only have the moment. That's all you've got ever, right? The past is gone and the future is never guaranteed. So all you've got is now. And alcohol sucks the meaning out of every single moment that you're drunk. And afterwards as well, because your brain is in this form of, it's just, yeah, like we were saying before, it's just, it's like in a swampland, you know, you just, I'll give you a good example of what I mean. When I stopped drinking alcohol first, and it was 2 or 3 months away from alcohol, I had, I pulled out a box of photographs, a big box of photographs, maybe 250, no, more than that, maybe 500 photographs in the whole thing. And I remember sitting there looking at them one afternoon and just thinking, most of the stuff in these photographs I do not remember. And most of them were of those most important moments in life when you do take photographs. I mean, you know, I'm not talking about now when we've all got cameras and people take out, they shoot everything, you know, and you've got so many photographs on your phone or on your hard drive that it's just impossible to go back and look at them all, you know. I'm talking about when you had to buy a roll of film and you were very choosy about the photographs that you were taking, because, you know, at the end of the day, it cost you 20 or 30 quid just to get 36 photographs. I can't remember what they called them now. Developed, that's it. So it cost you this much money. So you were very choosy about what you took. So it was generally always the really good moments in your life, you know, the moments when you celebrating, you know, marriages, births, christenings, parties, you know, all these kind of things. And those are the moments that you when you get older, you should be able to look at a photograph and it should help you to remember that moment. It should help you to, you know, the memory should come flooding back for you because of this picture. When you're a drinker and you were drunk in those moments, even though the photograph might have been taken when you were not drunk, the way alcohol works is it wipes the whole night out, you know, eventually. And you can't remember anything. So you're talking a really sad situation where all of your past is just wiped out. All the good moments, the ones that you should be remembered, is wiped out. Now, the good part of this is that after you stop drinking alcohol, for me, you really start to, as I said before, before you stop, your idea of fun becomes much more diluted, and the more you drink, the more you focus in the one area of your life, and the more diluted that whole it all gets for you, you know. So when you stop drinking alcohol, then you start remembering things, and you realize that life is a lot of fun. You know, you have to put in a bit more work in order to get to the fun and to build the fun. It's a bit scary in the beginning because you're having to start doing this without that small slice of instant gratification to get you there. So you have to do it on your own, but you learn how to do that. You know, life becomes lived. It becomes lived in the moment. You know, and you start having the meaning injected back into your life. You know, plans start to come to fruition. You know, your thoughts and your actions are moving towards better outcomes. You're moving towards that best possible version of yourself, and your life expands. You know, take a look at my earlier videos, you know, and see who I was back then. And you can see the progression as you're watching down through the years. Number 5 is the fog, the haziness, the blurriness, the bleariness, the vague recollections about what happened last night, what happened last week, what happened last year. I said with the photographs, what happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the stuff that you want to remember. Now, there's a recent study. It was done by an Oxford University. I can't remember which one offhand now. But they said that any amount of alcohol is bad for the brain. Have a look it up, Google it up, just put Oxford study for any amount of alcohol bad for the brain, and you'll see this study. It's not peer reviewed yet, but you know, I think it's only a matter of time before it is. You know, there was another study that said any amount of alcohol was not good for your life, you know, for your health. So, you know, the two of these are obviously, these are things that we know, right? Our bodies give us enough warning signs about it. We just ignore it. We rationalize what is happening to us. We rationalize the vomit and the spinning. You know, when your head is spinning, we rationalize the hangovers. We rationalize all the stuff that we've said and done when we've been drunk. We rationalize the wasted time, you know. We don't realize how shadowy and groggy our normal thinking has become when we're drinking. And then you stop. And afterwards, the fog lifts. And you don't even realize that you don't realize that the fog was there in the first place until it lifts, until you start thinking on a much clearer level. You know, it's as if you've been short-sighted for that long that you just don't realize it. You don't realize that you're short-sighted anymore. You know, have you ever seen those videos where there's a baby that's been given a pair of glasses for the first time and all of a sudden can see mommy or daddy? You know, have a look at one of those videos. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's just that level of sightedness, or when somebody is colorblind and they all of a sudden can see. You know, there's some people who are blind now who are able to see. You know, on that level. That's what I'm talking about. When you stop drinking, you see things in a completely different way. It opens up your perspective, your clear thinking. It's, you know, for me, it's one of the best results that I've had of not poisoning myself. You know, if you haven't got that alcohol tunnel, that little hidey hole that you can go running into and hide away from life anymore. You've got to face reality. You've got to deal with reality. You've got to put the tools in place, learn the skills that you need in order to deal with reality and face reality. And it's liberating. You know, it can be scary, right? It can be, it can cause a lot of anxiety, but I'm telling you now, anxiety is the best teacher that you will ever have. We don't realize that because we're hiding from anxiety. We're hiding from any kind of discomfort, and we run for the alcohol or whatever else is there. We run for the drug, the thing that we can hide behind and not have to feel it. You know, how can you ever get to that best possible version of yourself if you're living in this indistinct world of confusion and lack of meaning? You know, stopping drinking alcohol forces you to confront your life head on. warts and all. And you don't have to be perfect at everything, like I said, but it does require you that you do your best. Get to the best possible version of yourself means just that. So if you haven't subscribed yet, and if you want to ask a question, click on the join button down below the video. BM says, over a year and love it. Jose Alvarez, how you doing, Jose? He says, hey Kevin, any chance you can do a video dedicated to diet, lifestyle, post-drinking? Yeah, definitely. It's just one of those things. I've done a few videos on it, but I'll definitely do a live on that maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe July sometime. I've got a few topics lined up, but I'll definitely take a look at that. Cheers for the suggestion. I appreciate it. All right. One more sip, and let's get into the last part. One of the further things that I noticed was about socializing and peer pressure and just creating that life that is, I suppose, courage is such a, I don't know, it's an overused term now, but it needs a bit of courage to get started, and you gain courage when you stop by pushing yourself forwards, right? So socializing is or was alcohol bound for me, right? So it was tied up within alcohol from the first day that I walked into a pub and went into that. It was like, for me, it was like walking into a classroom with when you walk into a classroom for the first time. I always remember coming over from the UK when I was 12. We went to Dublin, and we went in through halfway through the school year. I think I've done that 3 or 4 times in my life, and it's not a good thing to go in. Everyone knows each other, and you're this strange guy with a strange accent that most people don't really like. The accent, that is. So that's what going into a pub felt like for me, except the other people in the class were a lot older than you, and they felt like, everyone knew what they were doing. So for me, it was a huge shyness, and that came out. But I discovered that drinking alcohol is a way of overcoming the shyness, right? A way of pushing it down. Again, the emotional push down. And, for me, that is just, that's how it made me, socializing for me, to be bound up with alcohol. So I couldn't socialize without alcohol. It was very difficult for me to do it. From day one for me, like I said, alcohol was easing that burden. Medication it became for me to get over. And life is going to throw you these things. Life is going to, when you're walking into a strange situation like that, it's just natural to feel that kind of way. But I think when you're young and you have a problem with it, then it's easier to deal with any problem if you can get to a stage where you don't care about it anyway. And it's not a great way to learn anything by drinking alcohol. Life's lessons in general are hard won. You have to fight hard for them. Experience and all the fear and anxiety that goes into making those experiences, goes into making mistakes, making a fool out of yourself in certain situations, appearing stupid in certain situations. That's all part of the growing up process, the learning process. And it's how you learn the most, is by pushing yourself through these experiences. And when you make a fool out of yourself and you don't care, when you embarrass yourself and you don't care because you don't remember what you're learning through it. So alcohol bypasses that learning experiences, but you're actually circumventing nothing because you're hiding. It's a form of hiding away from reality. It's it pushes you into a situation where you're fearful, you're alone, and you're pretending to be something that you're not really. You're deluding yourself. Do you get what I mean? So, you're not only not learning anything, but you're putting yourself into this huge disadvantage because you're never becoming the person that you should become if you just went through normal life. So, alcohol is not a social drug that in the sense of, it's a social drug in the sense that it enables a lot of people to be in social situations, but it doesn't make you sociable. It detaches you from the crowd while you're within the crowd, right? It dumbs you down so you just don't give a shit, right? And it's not very sociable, is it? But in a normal pub atmosphere, everyone is in that same situation. The older guys that are there, they're more experienced and they're sitting there sipping away on their pints and stuff like that. But watch them towards the end of the night and they'll get exactly the same way. Liquid courage not only forces you to socialize in a stupor, you become much less capable of coherent communication. You hear everyone shouting at each other, because everyone's, instead of saying things that are inventive or intelligent, they're saying things which are stupid. And in order to get themselves heard, instead of saying things that are communicative, instead of saying things that the other person wants to hear, they just raise the volume and they start shouting at each other, you don't see the small signals within yourself or within other people. When you're with other people and you're trying to communicate with other people, it's all about not just what they're saying, but it's about body language, it's about tonality, it's about watching the face and facial expressions and stuff like that. You miss all that when you're drunk, you miscommunicate all that as well in order to, when you're from your own end and from the other end coming backwards at you. So it just doesn't show the real you while you're drunk. It only communicates the drunken you, the druggy you, the drug user, the loser, the dumb person. That's all it communicates. Now, after you've stopped drinking alcohol, you become much more socially capable. Like I said, it takes a long time. When I stopped first, I had a big social anxiety when I quit, because I all of a sudden had to go into these places and into areas. And luckily, I've gone through a lot of life, so that helped me, and it didn't take me very long to understand, well, the alcohol wasn't really the thing that was giving me the courage, or it wasn't giving me the confidence of talking to other people. I could do that anyway. So I'd learned to do that in spite of the alcohol rather than anything else. You just gradually learn how to deal with it and then to thrive in those situations. You become much more willing to be in the moment, like I said, and to be with other people in the moment. You become much more willing to put yourself into a situation where you're not suffering fools gladly. I did before, like I said, I hung out with some very strange people. Or people, when I say that, I had some good friends who were my drinking buddies, but that's what they were. They were drinking buddies. They were people to share the time with while I was drinking and getting drunk. Now I remember much more about everything that's going on. Just the experience of life becomes much richer. It becomes much calmer. It becomes much more involved with other people and the situation that you're in, the moment that you're in, like I said. It becomes much more sociable. They always talk about alcohol in the perspective that it lowers inhibitions. That's what we're taught. But nobody teaches you that alcohol creates much of that inhibition in the first place. At least in the sense of that it prevents you from growing. It prevents you from becoming truly free. When you deal with shyness without medication, right, you deal with it and you gradually deal with it and you gradually grow and you get more confidence in yourself and you feel better about yourself, bigger self-esteem. And I can tell you, liberation from that aspect of things is amazing. That's one of the best things. Number 7, the last one for today, is just a cultural thing. My culture, I think the Western culture, Occidental culture, programs people from an early age to drink alcohol and to accept alcohol as a normal part of their lives. It's a culture in Ireland and the UK, I'm not sure about everyone else, where else, of wetting the baby's head. So the father goes out and gets drunk while the baby is born and stuff, It's just alcohol and alcohol drinking is everywhere. Young kids are sponges. and they might not seem like they're picking it up, but they are, you know, and they're picking it up in a very natural way. You know, they're not picking it up in a very covert way. It's very overtly pushed. It's there all the time. It's normalized. So kids don't think anything about it. When they get to 18, it becomes that adult rite of passage through from being a child into being a grown man or a grown woman. And it continues from there. And most people, I think most people, they start drinking because of peer pressure. They continue drinking because they're using it as tools, but it's just that cultural push in that direction all the time. You know, the alcohol companies don't make money if they don't increase the amounts of alcohol that you're drinking. You know, people use alcohol to maintain that comfort zone within themselves, and they don't want to push themselves out of that. So that, you know, as an outside thing, I'm no longer in that. You know, like I said, I'm many years now into this journey, and I no longer feel like I'm a product of, or I'm affected by the drinking culture that I live in now. You know, it's great to be free of that and not care what people think, to be socially capable, to be more selective about who I hang out with, where I hang out, you know, to be more particular about the things that you put inside your body. You've got more self-control, you've got more self-confidence, more vitality, more relaxation, more money, more time, more energy. So, all right. I'm going to leave it there for today. This was a good video. You know, for me, it's, if you take one thing from this video, it's not all about the alcohol. It's about what you do with your life. It's what you do with the time and the money and everything else that you save from the alcohol. Put a stop to alcohol, and then after that, it's what you do after you stop drinking alcohol. That's where you're going to get the magic to happen. That's where you get all the benefits. Yes, you need to do a lot of work. You're going to uncover a lot of stuff, some of it which has been hiding for a long time under the influence of alcohol. Some of it is good, some of it's bad, but once that fog lifts and your brain clears, you start seeing things from a very clear perspective. You put yourself in such a great position to start moving forwards, to start moving, as they say, onwards and upwards, and towards that best possible version of yourself. So I'm Kevin O'Hara for Habits Unplugged. Don't forget to click on the like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video. All right, take care of yourself. Onwards.